Welcome back. The title of this mini lecture is African Americans and the War of 1812. We're going to talk about 5 terms that, as you go to learn more about this conflict and the distinct role and very complex roles that African Americans played in this, it's good to kind of center on these to get a sense of really what happened. So let's get into it. So the first is the Chesapeake Leopard Affair. All right, now, I recognize that the War of 1812 is one of those things that most folks are like, oh yeah, there was that, and it happened in 1812. And if they know a little bit about it, it's, oh yeah, there was that whole Star-Spangled Banner thing, and maybe, Bombs Early Light and Dawn's Early Light or whatever. The War of 1812 was a conflict between the United States and Great Britain that began in 1812, but it was a conflict that built up over time. And one of the contributing factors to why it happened was a process called impressment. Now, impressment was the act of seizing American sailors on the seas undertaken by British ships and by British sea captains. So, 1790s, the British are fighting Napoleon. The Parliament passes something called the Press Act, which basically says you can get British subjects, if you can find them, and you can put them in your crews to be in the Royal Navy in their service against the French. Now, the British captains here, I can go get men, and they don't really ask questions about where they're from. And so they begin a process of stopping American ships, merchant ships, in some cases U.S. naval vessels, such as the USS the Chesapeake, firing on them or stopping them generally, boarding them armed, and seizing men who they would often claim were deserters from the Royal Navy. Now, some of them may be, but the British maybe also just kind of captured them and pressed them into service, and they got out of it. So in the case of the Chesapeake Leopard Affair, you have 4 black men who were sailors on the Chesapeake who are told by the British that they are British deserters and who are brought off this ship and brought into the Royal Navy. And this causes a huge stir, right? So this happens in June of 1807. And the issue of race wasn't necessarily what was at stake there. The issue was the fact that these are 4 individuals who say they are Americans and they're being taken by the British. Now, this connection of race and the role of black men in these situations in the time frame of the War of 1812 is common and constant, but is often sort of taken out of the equation when it comes to many of the histories here. So impressment, again, is one of those reasons or things that leads up to the war. Secondly, the Federal Militia Act of 1792. So the U.S. military during the Revolutionary War was in many ways an integrated combat force. And although, of course, clear racism existed, there is not always, throughout the entirety of the war, a process whereby black men are restricted from combat arms. When the Federal Militia Act is signed by Congress in 1792, the goal of it is to kind of create a centralized structure of the process in each state for the creation of militias. And there's this expectation in the Militia Act that white men of age in communities would be subject to military service. It doesn't say anything about black men. As a result, states dealt with it differently. Some were open to black men being in the service, others in integrated or segregated situations, often segregated. And what you'll end up seeing is other states completely refusing, mainly in the South, completely refusing to have black individuals in the service, in their military units. But you have quite a number of African Americans who are going to participate in the U.S. Navy and in the U.S. military during the U.S. Army during the War of 1812. So the war begins in the summer of 1812. There are U.S. military units that are sent up to Canada in a ill-fated invasion. 1813, so the next year, there's a lot of military conflicts around the modern Midwest. Battles for the Great Lakes are occurring. 1814 into early 1815, the last conflicts of the war. You have the invasion on the East Coast by the British, and you have the last major conflict, something called the Battle of New Orleans. So just as an example in terms of service here, there was a young man by the name of Jordan Noble, who I believe was born into slavery, who was a young teen, so 13, 14 years old, around there, who ends up as an escaped individual, as a drummer boy, right? A drummer, a drummer boy at the battle of the Battle of New Orleans. And it's his role in drumming that is central to kind of helping to provide order for the army here. Now, Jordan Noble is an interesting figure in War of 1812 kind of commemorations for years afterwards and this kind of thing. So he survives the war, and he lives through to the end of the 19th century. A third term for us is Admiral Cochrane's proclamation. So when the British invade in 1814, on the East Coast, especially places like Maryland, they issue a proclamation much like Lord Dunmore did back in the 1770s, basically saying that if you are an enslaved person and you want to be free, come fight for the British. And you have hundreds who will flee to do so. Fourth, Captain Runche's Corps. So Isaac Brock, one of the commanders in Canada, begins a process of recruiting black men in Canada to fight against the Americans, and he does this in Niagara, and he recruits a corps of black men from Niagara, led by this individual by the name of Captain Runche. They fight in a number of conflicts, including at the Battle at Fort George. The unit is disbanded once the war is over, and many of them will look for assistance. Being able to be given land was a common expectation of service meant for many white individuals in the British military, and they will be given far less land, in some cases none at all. Fifth would be Paul Jennings. So Paul Jennings was a young enslaved African-American, who assisted Dolly Madison. So fairly famously, when the British are marching on Washington to burn the city, the idea goes, or the story goes, that Dolly Madison, the First Lady, is able to save this grand painting from the White House. Well, it is saved, but it's saved through, her order certainly, but through the actual labor of Paul Jennings. So it's important to sort of understand the role that he played in assisting in that endeavor in August of 1814. So I think we can see there is this through line, really, throughout the entirety of the War of 1812, of the integral role that African Americans are playing throughout really both sides of this conflict. Thank you.